Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I'm your host, John the Bod, aka the Bod Father, with my co-host,
Gina.
We are bringing you guys awesome interviews as always, and it is an honor and privilege to have a young man on the show with us today. Basically, he's an adult now, so all you cheekies out there who like some young, here you go. But we have Damiano Christian. He has a EP that's out right now called Built in Good Value, and he's a guitar shredder. So what I want to break this down and say to you guys that don't understand this, he is a guitar prodigy. This guy can absolutely make a guitar talk to you. And if you don't get what I'm saying, go listen to music. Go listen to guitar players and stuff, because that's what I'm talking about. He can shred, he can play, and it's pretty damn good. So, Damiano, how's it going?
I'm doing good, John. Thank you for the introduction.
I told you I'd make you look good, dude. All right.
Thank you.
So, you're 18 now. You have many influences, including one of my all-time favorite. That's the iconic and late great Randy Rhoads of Quiet Riot and Ozzy Osbourne. Do you feel pressured being labeled the next great guitar shredder? You know, that's some high praises to uphold, man.
Yeah, I do a little bit, because there's a lot to hold up to with, guys from the past like Randy Rhoads and Eddie Van Halen, guys like that. You got to be able to play just as good as them. So, yeah, there is a little bit of pressure being able to try and at least hold up that title.
I thought this is pretty cool too. Some of your influences too was Mozart and Ritchie Blackmore and Liberace. That's like a wide variety of stuff, man.
Yeah.
I just want to take it back for a second before we get into the EP. And when was the first time you picked up a guitar, and how did that experience go for you?
I picked up the guitar when I was 11, and let's see, I've been telling this story a lot lately now.
Shame on you, Gina.
About the whole picking up the guitar experience, which is pretty, I really like telling it because it shows how much of an influence Randy Rhoads has on many young guitar players that, still going 35 years since he passed away, he's still influencing kids. So when I was 11, I picked up the guitar after hearing a track off the tribute album called Revelation Mother Earth, which is off Blizzard of Oz. And when I got to the solo, for some reason, I had the realization that I wanted to be a guitar player. So, a few years prior to that, my dad buys one of those guitar starter kits, and it just sat in the corner for all that time. So I just finally picked it up, and that was actually one of the first Randy songs I learned how to play. And yes, it was hard being a fairly new individual to the instrument, but being able to read music from playing piano, I also felt like it kind of came to me a bit easier than it does to people who've never played music in their life who are just picking up the guitar. So overall, it was a very fun and learning experience, starting out and learning to play, and especially picking a song as tough as Revelation Mother Earth.
Sure.
I mean, yeah, you'd think I'd start with something like Smoke on the Water. That's just simple, but
That's what
I
Murray
decided
had a
to
little
go for
lamb.
the hard stuff.
Yeah, Murray had a little lamb. I can't even play that, but
No, man, go right for it. Dive right in, right?
Yes, exactly.
And before that, you were playing piano, is that right?
Yes, my parents started me on the piano first at the age of 3, and I went to a music conservatory for about 10 years here in the capital in Connecticut here, and towards the end of my time there, I started to pick up the guitar.
Cool. Are you playing any other instruments as well?
I can play bass. I sing on all the songs on the new EP, and I used to play saxophone too when I was in middle school for band, and I started getting into stuff like the mandolin for more guitar stuff, and
nice.
Right now in the process of teaching myself some drumming.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty awesome. I mean, you stretch yourself out there and learn the mandolin. That's pretty awesome.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's how basically music started in my family. My dad's grandfather came from Sicily, the town of Messina, and he was a mandolin player. And when he came to America from Sicily, basically the music gene passed down to my dad's brother, who's a guitar player. And then it kind of skipped over and passed to me, who now I have the music gene from my uncle.
Sure.
What's your dad do when he sees you play? Like, yeah, that should have been me. I should be playing that guitar.
Well, what's funny is my dad actually for a while before I even picked up the guitar, he had bought a few guitars for himself and tried teaching himself, but that really didn't go well or go anywhere, so he basically sold all the guitars he bought and all the effects pedals and the amplifier, and then I started playing, and then a few years go by, and then there's times where he'll come in, he'll grab one of the guitars, and he starts trying to play next to me, and then I ended up, trying to teach him, and then he gets fed up and walks away. But
No, you know who he reminds me of? For the parents that do this, and then their kids are teaching them, they remind me of that old man that's on YouTube, that they show the old man trying to learn how to play guitar, and he's like, gets it down pat just about, and he misses that one little chord, and he smashes the guitar, and
he gets all pissed off. Yeah,
that's the dude.
He's like, screw this.
Yeah. It's awesome.
So we kind of know where your influences come from music, but where does the inspiration come from when you're writing music?
let's see. I'd have to say it comes from listening to the music of my influences. I get a lot of ideas from, a lot of songs that I grew up listening to. And then I feel like I can, a lot of times I'll be listening to the song and I'll be reworking it in my head to what I think would make it sound better. Or I'll hear just like one little line and then I'll take it and expand on it and make it my own. I know a lot of musicians do a lot of reading, or they do their songwriting based off of observations throughout the day or what they see on TV or whatnot. Sometimes the TV thing happens. I'll see something on TV and write a song around it, but it mostly comes through listening to a lot of my influences in the music that they wrote and played, and then just taking little pieces from a bunch of different people and reworking it, or basically rewriting it in a different way, and then using that as my beginning, and then just writing everything that I would have put in there if I wrote the song, and it ends up becoming my own thing.
Got it.
I thought this is pretty cool, man. Much respect to you on this, because a lot of young bands are not, paying a little tribute to the old bands that came before them. And I thought this is really nice. You released a newly video of the Beatles, "She Loves You."
Yes.
Now, that song was mixed by Grammy-nominated producer David Ivory, who has previously worked with Hailstorm and The Roots. So let's talk about that, man. What was the influence to do that song, and how was it working with David on this?
The influence came from the observation of seeing how a lot of bands back then basically made it big, and one of the ones that just really left an impact on me was Van Halen, who made it big off of "You Really Got Me" by the Kinks that they covered. Basically Eddie says that's the song that was first played on the radio and made them big overnight. So
But think about
I figured,
But think about that, a cover song of all songs from a band to make
right.
it.
Yeah, exactly. And I figured, Eddie has done a lot of very innovative stuff, and it seems like what he does always ends up working.
Yeah.
So I figured maybe follow in his footsteps a bit and pick a cover tune. When I was younger, I used to be a bit of a Beatles fan too, and that was "She Loves You" was the song I kind of always really liked. Plus, listening to it, I felt like there was a lot I could do to make it more heavier and add more, fill in the spaces more with a lot of the guitar work in it. So that's basically why I ended up choosing that song. I felt like there was a lot more I could do with the guitars in it to make it more modern and more rock sounding. Working with David was actually pretty fun. We drove down to Pennsylvania where he has his recording studio, and you walk in, there's 2 sound engineers that he's got there ready to help take all your gear and help you set it up. So I never had that sort of treatment before. I was always used to just setting my own stuff up and, doing all my own setup stuff basically. And those 2 guys were very helpful. And, if there was anything that David needed to be done, they went and did it. 2 minutes later, it was fixed. So working with David, on the other hand, we ended up redoing the whole solo section with him. And David really has a good way of challenging a musician and making them play things that they've never played before. There's a lot of stuff in that solo I would have never even thought I could do technically, or that I never thought I would ever write down and record. Mm-hmm. So working with him, it all started off with, the whole car right up. I'm like, how am I going to do this solo differently? And I got this idea of just play the main vocal melody as the beginning of the solo. And then apparently when I got there, that was David's idea as well, and we had never spoke or met before.
Wow.
That's
and then
pretty awesome.
Out of that, doing that whole part, he starts singing to me some different ideas that I could be doing, and there were a couple that stood out, and then I ended up taking them. I played them, and then after a couple seconds, I was like, okay, now they already sound pretty bland to me. What if I took them and elaborated on them? And then he would say if it was good or bad, and there were a lot of times where he was like, that actually sounds a lot better, let's do that. And we ended up making the solo a whole just by doing it piece by piece. And that's why I really loved working with him, with people I've worked with in the past who, are recording, music. They haven't really given me any guidance in the recording process. It's always been I just sat down, plugged in, played. Either I missed a note or it was good or bad, do it again, and that was it. There was really no guidance that I had with David Ivory. So I really loved working with him, and he just had this professionalism and this musicianship about him that, he knew how to help the artist and how to bring out what they were envisioning in their head.
Yeah, you got to work with somebody that's got to give you structure, man, because you want your album to sound great. You want your guitar playing to sound great. So it's good when you and the producer that you're working with are both on the same page, and he gives you structure.
Yeah, he very much does.
I also think it's great when people kind of make you get uncomfortable because you end up doing things you never thought that you could do. And it's almost just nice to be able to test yourself and see what you're made of.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the first time playing in front of him, I was actually very nervous because I knew self-consciously I didn't come prepared at all, because a lot of the times I never wrote out solos or anything. I just played whatever and was like, let's just leave it at that. So he actually just his presence and knowing that I was going there put a lot of pressure on me and made me feel a bit uncomfortable, because I didn't want to, look like I came unprepared, and,
sure.
He gets upset with me, and it's like, why are you wasting my time? So I, last minute, I'm like, okay, just play the vocal melody and see what happens. And luckily he had the same idea as me, so it all worked out. He, being uncomfortable like that made me come up with things I never thought I'd do.
So, Damiano, what's impressed you the most about making the EP Built in Good Value, man? What's caught your eye about it, if anything, man? What sticks out most to you?
Let's see. The thing that sticks out the most to me is, to me personally, the fact that I actually made something good this time around when it comes to recording, and that it's to me that, I don't go in and hear any mistakes that, could have been fixed, but I neglected to look at.
Right.
And it gives me that sense of pride in it and feeling proud that it's actually something worthwhile, and that, a lot of people have told me sounds really great and could probably actually end up doing something. So that's probably the most thing that sticks out to me is that I'm in approval of every song that's on there, and none of them give me that feeling like, oh, I should have done it again, or oh, I should have fixed this and that. It's all been nitpicked into how my perfectionist brain works.
Yeah, and you yourself, and you yourself, man, is your world's biggest critic. You are the one that's like, I don't know about this.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, there's someone I like to quote on that is Eddie Van Halen, because I know there was an article I read where people ask him if he listens to the first Van Halen record anymore, and he says he sometimes does, but he doesn't like to because he can hear all the mistakes that he made on it.
Yeah.
So I feel like with this album, with this EP we released, that I can actually listen to this album and not be able to critique it in a way that I'm just hearing a bunch of mistakes that could have been fixed. I feel like I can actually look at it and say, wow, I actually did a good job. I took my time, and, I made use of every minute I had possible recording this. And, yeah, that's basically how I'm actually, because to critique it, because with, there's some recordings online that were released from when I was younger. And I just, like Eddie Van Halen, I hate listening to them because I just hear how bad they sound and all these things that could have been fixed that I wasn't allowed to do because I was young and, I had someone basically controlling what I did in the studio.
Wow.
Sure.
So that's another reason why I like to listen to this EP.
What's your favorite song on it?
Oh, gosh.
If you could pick one, like what's the favorite one?
Oh, the Beatles, easily.
Well, yeah. When we picked it, that was the favorite one at first. But when the EP was finished, I'm torn between two of them because they both, in a way, mean something to me. One out of the two Must Have Been the Devil, because that's the song it started off one way, and then I took it, basically stripped the whole thing like a car and rebuilt it, and I was actually proud of it. The other is Straight Between the Eyes, because that's the first song I actually ever wrote with another collaborator, which would be my sister, who
nice.
plays bass on the EP. So that song actually, personally means a lot to me because that's the first song I ever wrote with my sister.
That's awesome.
That was actually leading me to my next question, because I was going to ask you, tell us about the band, because I had heard that you were working with your sister. And so does the whole family have some musical talent? And like, how's that whole experience?
Well, not the whole family.
Not Dad.
No, none of my parents play any instruments at all. The only one, in the parents section would be my dad's brother, who's a guitar player. Right. But, in my family with my dad's side, I was the only kid that was a musician. And let's see, I was about 16, I want to say, and I had a band together already that we were going to play at my confirmation party that I had for, it's one of those things you do at the church and then you have a party after. And I actually wanted to play for all the kids I hung out with. Mm-hmm. And I thought I had a couple bass players lined up. They all said they couldn't make it to the party about a week before we were supposed to have it.
Oh, no.
And yeah, that kind of made me mad because it's like you have an RSVP date 3 weeks before the party and then you tell me the week of. So I was like, damn it, I don't have a bass player, so it would be just me and a drummer. Luckily, my dad, with buying the guitars and whatnot, he bought a bass too because he tried to teach himself the bass, but that ended up him 2 weeks and then he put it down and never touched it again. So I took the bass. I had 6 or 10 songs in the set list to do, and the only person I could think of that would be up for doing it for some reason was my sister. So I give her the bass, I give her the set list, and I say, Olivia, or as she likes to go by, Liv, can you learn these songs by Saturday? And this was like Monday or Tuesday.
Oh.
And just look up the tablature for all the songs. I mean, she had a little bit, of music lessons like every kid does. One kid tries the violin or they try, playing something else. She tried teaching herself guitar a little bit, but she never went anywhere with it. So I gave her the bass. I was like, can you learn these songs in 5 days? And she's like, I can try. And then by, let's see, Friday, I'd say, Olivia, we need to go over all these songs. Do you have them ready? And she said yes, and I kind of doubted her a bit, but then we played through all 10 songs together, and she learned all 10 songs and played the bass like she had been playing for at least over 2 years. And it just floored me how she did that. And then, we played together at the party, and she just ended up becoming my bass player, and bass has stuck with her for almost the past 2 years, and she's just been teaching herself like I taught myself guitar.
That's awesome,
that
man.
That is awesome.
Yeah, that's how much your sister
awesome.
loves you, man.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for her, I would have been screwed without a bass player,
I'd
and
played bass
it probably
for you.
would have sounded like crap.
I'd played bass for you. I wouldn't care. So how?
But yeah, I mean, she's turned into a really, phenomenal bass player, and, she'll lock herself in her room like I did when I was younger, and she just locks herself in there and plays bass for, 4 or 5 hours, and I could just hear her blasting out of her computer, Number of the Beast and Aces High by Iron Maiden,
that's
or
awesome.
Children of the Grave and War Pigs by Black Sabbath, or she starts teaching herself the whole Megadeth catalog, like Holy Wars and Peace Sells, and I'm like,
holy shit.
How are you playing all this stuff after only 2 years?
Sure.
Yeah.
It just surprises me.
That's impressive, man.
Yeah.
And
That's really impressive.
And I can't play fucking Mary Had a Little Lamb on a guitar. Now I'm going to turn into the old man on YouTube with a guitar. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for the confidence boost. Jeez. God. So, Damiano, how hard do you push yourself from song to song or to come up with something that you've not done before? Let's talk about that a little bit.
I would say that I try to push myself to the max because I feel like every good idea has already been taken or owned by someone, or, to get even more technical, copywritten by somebody or patented.
Sure.
Because we all know there's that one guitar player who likes to patent all his things out there, and that's Eddie Van Halen. So
sure.
I always feel like it's very hard to come up with something new and original that no one's done before, and it ends up becoming this quiz or this test and this big mental thinking process of what can I come up with that no one has ever seen before. Because like Eddie Van Halen explains his finger tapping invention that now we all know that, I guess everyone's saying he didn't invent, people were doing it before him, but he had saw Jimmy Page just doing pull-offs from the solo to Heartbreaker, and then he figured, what if I just take my one finger like a capo and then do the same thing but add my right hand and tap the same notes?
Mm-hmm.
So it ends up becoming a process like that where I'm like watching everyone and being like, okay, what are they doing that I can take and make a new invention out of for guitar playing? And it ends up always not working because Eddie Van Halen's already come up with 90% of all the original ideas that guitar players do today. So I would say I push myself to where it's like, I just end up becoming brain dead and I don't know what to do. With songwriting, I wouldn't say it's that hard. I just do a lot of improvising and noodling, and, I end up coming up with some stuff. I record it in my iPhone, and I just label them song ideas, and if I remember it, then I know it's a good song, and if I don't remember it, then it mustn't be good, so why even bother continuing with it?
Sure. I want to talk to you about, you've got EPs out. I know you do the EP route, but are you eventually wanting to put a full length out at some point? or do you want to stay the EP route, man? Because I know some people, they want to just put EPs out due to the attention span that people have now with music. But I'm an old school guy. I like to have just the full lengths. That's me, though.
Yes, I would like to put out a full-length record because I've also had people comment to me that they wish the EP was longer than just 6 songs. So, yes, I would like to definitely do a full-length record. The thing I feel with full-length records is people don't have the attention span as much anymore because songs are now being written longer than 4 minutes. And, you know, if you go back 30 years ago or 20 years ago, the maximum length of a song was probably 6 minutes. Even Queen had a problem with Bohemian Rhapsody getting it on the air because it was 6 minutes long. Mm-hmm. Today now, that's standard for some reason, and songs are becoming, 7, 8, 9 minutes long. And that's why I feel like people don't have the attention span anymore to listen to a full-length record. So if I was to do a full-length record, which I'd love to do, I'd probably keep the songs in the 4-minute range. If I had one like a ballad, it would probably be 5, which could be exceptional to me. But, I'd keep them 4 minutes. You get 10 or 11 songs like, bands did back in the day where people could actually listen to the full record. So, yes, I would definitely do a full-length record, and I would do it in the way that hopefully people can keep their attention span with it and listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, agreed. Well, Metallica's done 8 9-minute songs on Death Magnetic, and I love Metallica and a lot of bands, but when a band goes above 5-6 minutes, man, it's like, oh.
Exactly. It's like, does the song ever end?
Yeah, it's like, it's the 18th guitar solo. Jesus. What's the deal?
Yeah. Especially if it's a very repetitive song and then you're just listening to the same thing over for 9 minutes. It's like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's happened with a lot of bands.
Get the whole attention span thing.
And that's why a lot of them do the EP route, because of that
right.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they could put 5 songs on there that are 8 minutes long or 7 minutes long, and it's the length, and it's the same amount of time as a full-length record.
Yep.
Instead of doing 10 to 12 songs, and then you got a record that's over, an hour long.
Tell us about some of the struggles you've had as an artist and how you've overcome them.
Oh boy, there's a lot of those.
Doing this interview's one of them. No.
Well, no, I actually love doing the interviews because I actually get to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
I've never been interviewed before this EP was released, and I've always wanted the experience of, someone asking questions and me answering them with, so they get the answers from me about it. But struggles, one I'd have to say is definitely getting screwed by people. That's one of the ones I have learned for the past 4 years now, since I was 14. And you always get screwed with the money part of it, especially on my end. I have my parents as my support system. I'll chip in money as well. And the next thing I know is, there's $3,000 gone from my bank account that went nowhere, and I just basically got a big FU, and,
Jeez.
That's a common theme these days.
Yeah, for me, it's something I will probably never overcome, because the person that does that, beforehand, you end up building a relationship with them to where you trust them, and you're friends with them, and then it's like they've totally turned around and stabbed you in the back.
Jeez.
So I really don't know if I will ever overcome that struggle, because I'm also a person that likes to make money, and, off of things that I've done. So it's very hard to go into detail about the struggles because,
right.
Next thing I know, all over the internet for saying so-and-so's name about the time they screwed me. So
sure. Okay. Well, then, do you have any advice for any young musicians getting into the business?
I definitely say do your research. Definitely a lot of things that I've done is definitely look into the aspects of music law and the laws behind music, copywriting your music, making sure that you own it, you get royalties for what you wrote, and that, if any money is made, that it goes to you, the musician. The other thing is learning how to look at contracts and licensing deals, because one of the struggles I had was somebody had wanted me to sign a licensing agreement and said that I could only get copies of my music until I signed a licensing agreement. So, and these songs were not even copywritten yet that you hear on the EP now.
Right.
So we ended up having to spend that good chunk of $1,200 to $2,000 just to get my music back that I recorded in my house.
Sure.
Jeez.
So definitely learn how to read a contract, how to see the red flags in them, how to see if somebody's screwing you in a contract, because the other thing was that we were going to pay in full for CDs and vinyls, but the record label was only going to give us 10% of that merchandise to sell at concerts and whatnot or shows, and they were going to take the other 90% and make money off of it, even though we were paying for all the CDs and vinyls. So definitely learn how to read that, and just make sure whatever you're getting into, you know the ground rules of it first, and you know what's expected of you first and what's expected of the other person at first. Because, I've never had a problem with bands, but anytime I'm in, getting into a new band, I'm always looking for what the bigger picture is and what the goal is of the band and what they expect of me. So if you ever come into working with, say, a producer of a record label or anybody else in the music business that is handling money, you figure out all of that first, like you're getting into a relationship. So basically, there's a lot of things that need to be done before any young musician gets into this stuff, because I do know, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but there was this group of young teenage African-American boys who were doing some metal band in New York City that got signed by Sony.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's oh crap!
What is their name? I know who you're talking about.
It's on the tip of my tongue. There's three of them. There's three of the guys.
Yeah, and they ended up, I guess, not liking their contract with Sony and getting really screwed in the contract, and their lawyer literally had to bail them out of it because, they didn't take the necessary precautions to make sure everything that in that contract was going to benefit the artist, and it ended up turning into this whole thing.
Unlocking the truth.
So, yes, that's what it was. Didn't they even do like a documentary about it?
I think so. And those dudes can rock. I mean,
yeah.
And like you, man, self-taught. I mean, they did this themselves.
And that's the sad thing. These people think they can just prey on young musicians because they don't know any better.
Right. I was wondering why I hadn't seen anything about the guys, because you usually see on Facebook and stuff, about every other week they're doing something. That's crazy, man. Keep your head up, man, and just when people's right, you know it in your gut. Go with your gut instinct on this shit. You know that. So, you're young.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my advice. Well, I'm getting tongue-tied. That's my advice to you guys. That makes me mad when people do stuff like that. That lights a fire under me. It's like,
yeah, it really does, especially when it's even done to artists that are in their 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
Like if you look at Ozzy Osbourne,
with the young artists.
Yeah.
I just think with young artists, there's so much they can be easily taken advantage of because they're not aware or had the experience of, the vultures in the industry trying to take from them. Mm-hmm. So I think that's great advice.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they don't have the luxuries that, established artists have, where they have accountants and music industry lawyers that look over all their label contracts. The only thing they have is their parents that know nothing about the industry at all. So these people take them, milk them, and then basically take advantage of them. And next thing they know, they don't have any money left, which has in a way, kind of happened to me and my family. And, I was surprised the second time around almost ended up happening again. And in a way, it kind of did.
Jeez.
So,
Be careful.
it's just kind of a, what is it? The cause and reaction experience, I guess. Yeah, I mean, this even happens to older artists too, like the original drummer and bass player on those first two Ozzy albums with Randy Rhoads. That would be Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake. They ended up being kicked out of the band, told they were getting no royalties, and, they even went as far to redo those two albums in the mid-2000s with Rob Trujillo from Metallica playing and redoing all Bob Daisley's bass parts, and another drummer re-recording all the drums,
And
just because they didn't want to pay the two original members royalties.
And Jake E. Lee, too, off of Bark of the Moon.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they said with Bark at the Moon, I guess there's an interview with Jake where he says, he was supposed to get a contract in the beginning. He kept asking for it, and finally when he finished recording his parts for Bark at the Moon, Sharon gave him a contract, and the contract stated all instruments and all songs were written and recorded by Ozzy Osbourne. And Jake said, that's not true. All four of us did this. And he said, what happens if I don't sign it? Sharon said, well, if you don't sign it, we're going to send you home with a plane ticket. We'll bring someone else in to re-record all your parts, and you can sit in line to sue us.
Wow.
And that's what's been happening to artists, I guess, who have played with Ozzy Osbourne, in those first four records.
Right.
Jeez.
So that's basically starting to happen to young musicians now.
Yeah.
Let's get into this, man. I want to know what can fans expect at your show when they come to see you, or are you going to be doing any more stuff with the Randy Rhoads tribute? Because I know you do that a lot too.
Well, the Randy Rhoads tribute thing started out when I played at Randy Rhoads Remembered 2 years ago when they did it for the first time, and they did an East Coast tour. I believe this was back in 2014, so this is almost 3 years ago. But yeah, that all started with that show, and I got to play with Rudy Sarzo and Brian Tishy, who have both played with Ozzy. I met Randy Rhoads' brother, and that's kind of how the whole, playing tribute to Randy started. I would have definitely loved to have done that show again. I've never been given the chance or the opportunity to do it again, but if I was given it, I'd love to. Mm-hmm. But through that show, I actually met a bass player and a drummer who are both twins, and about 2 years after I played that show, they seemed to remember me and messaged me about doing our own Randy Rhoads tribute show. And this has basically turned into an Ozzy Osbourne tribute, the Randy Rhoads years, called Ozzy America. And basically what I'm doing, I do the whole Randy Rhoads catalog with these three other dudes, and we all dress up like from the Diary of a Madman tour with the castle backdrop.
Nice.
All the outfits
That's
and the
awesome.
guitars and the amplifiers, and we pay tribute to Randy every time we do a show, and it ends up becoming a really big spectacle. And when we do a show, we don't like to hold back and be like, be scared about certain things. We just come all out and give everything our all. So that's what I've been doing with the Randy Rhoads tribute thing. I just ended up becoming a part of a really great tribute group, and we do all the Randy material and do it just like the 1982 Diary tour.
That's awesome. That is awesome, man. That's how you pay a tribute right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've loved doing it ever since I was approached by these two guys, and we are definitely going to have some tour dates in the summer. I know we've recently been asked to do the Station Firehouse Memorial show in Rhode Island. I guess that was the show where the Great White was playing and the club burned down, and I guess over 100 people were killed.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
So we were asked to play at that fundraiser in June for that fund, for the Station Fire Memorial fundraiser. And, hopefully something takes off with that. But, when fans come to a show, they're basically just going to expect a lot of showmanship, a lot of I like to do a lot of audience interaction and hope that the audience responds well to it and gets involved. That's another thing, about today's music. I feel like when you're playing to an audience, they don't like to get involved anymore with the show.
Yeah.
They just like to stand there, either be on their phones or video it or take photographs. I mean, you got to be a pretty big arena band like Black Sabbath to get the audience to sing back to you, or Queen. So that's something that I feel is very missing, and I try to do at all my shows, is to just get the audience to interact with the band and vice versa. And it's definitely going to be something visual between, this solo project and Ozzy America, the Randy Roach tribute show that I do. They're both very visual, so we definitely like our fans to go home with remembering not just what they heard in the music, but what they saw in the show. With this solo band, I like to make sure that all three band members, including myself, are dressed in a particular way that are going to catch people's eyes. We like to bring back the leather pants, the velvet jackets or leather jackets, and just that, 80s hard rock metal look that that people were drawn to back then. So it's definitely visual. We like, we want fans to expect audience participation requests from the band, and we just expect for the fans to have a good time and just remember a good show.
Say 5 years from now we're doing another interview. What would you have liked to accomplish in that time, and what do you hope that we're talking about?
I would really love to accomplish getting the chance to play for Ozzy Osbourne.
There you go.
Yeah.
Since I was 11 and picked up the guitar and heard that live track, and you can hear, how big the audiences were when Randy played with him through those tracks. Yeah, that's been a dream of mine that I've always wanted to do, is play in front of those mass audiences, get to stand in Randy's spot and, his spotlight next to Ozzy, and just play through all those classic songs from those two records and just make a show out of it. I've really dedicated the past almost 8 years of my life paying homage to Randy and making him my idol and the reason for practicing every day and writing my original music. So that is something I would really love to accomplish, is just, getting to play for a lot of people, getting to make people have a fun experience and make them happy and enjoy themselves when they see me play, just to make, every single one of those audience members go home saying that they enjoyed the show and there was not one thing wrong with my performance. Because when I do a performance, I like to deliver 100%. I don't like to have an off night, because I feel like if I have an off night, that's the thing the audience remembers, and it'll be one of those shows where people go like, oh, well, when I saw him, he sounded bad and he wasn't that good. I want every show to be, oh, we saw him, he was great, and he was a great player and had a good performance. So I want to be able to accomplish not sending home audience members with a bad taste in their mouth for my performance. And then on the side, I would just accomplish playing for Ozzy.
Well, sure, we all would. I'd love to get him on the show for an interview.
Yeah.
I know Gina's wanting me to get Corey Taylor, which I'm trying. So
Really?
I'm trying. I won't give up.
That would be it for me right there. We we always talk about everyone has that one person, and if we had Corey Taylor on, that would be awesome for me.
Yeah, but having Damiano on here, man, he's been pretty fucking awesome too, man. So
well, of course.
Yeah, this has been really cool, man. How can folks stay in touch with you, Damiano, buy this new EP, tour dates when you start the tour, and do whatever you're going to do? How can they do that, my man?
Well, to contact me, I usually like to do everything through Facebook. It's just a lot easier. We have a Damiano Christian Facebook page. The past few interviews I've just spelled out my first name, because past 18 years, no one's been able to, you get that one lucky person that spells it right or says it right, like you guys have, but not everyone does. So my first name is spelled Damiano, and you can find the Damiano Christian Facebook page on Facebook. We have an Instagram page you can follow us on by the same name, Twitter page, YouTube channel where you can find all the Randy Rhoads tribute videos that I've done and videos for the She Loves You music video we did, as well as a lyric video we did for Must Have Been the Devil. You can buy the EP Built in Good Value on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, Google Play, and you can find links for that on our Facebook page, our Instagram page as well, and Twitter, I believe, as well. We also have a Damiano Christian website, which is DamianoChristian.com. In regard to tour dates, I know we have at least 3 local gigs in Connecticut here in the summer. I know that I will be definitely doing some touring with a original power metal band from Connecticut called Sacred Oath, and we have a couple dates with them, and one of the shows is going to be opening for the band Fate's Warning.
Nice. Congrats, man.
Yes.
Hey,
So that'll be here in Connecticut.
Before I let you go, good sir, would you care to do a promo for the show?
Hello, everybody. This is Damiano Christian, and you are listening to BODS Mayhem Hour radio show.
Everybody stick around. We got some great music coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour from my co-host,
Gina.
We will see you guys and gals next week. Rock on and rock out for me, folks. Thanks, Damiano.
No problem. Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you.